Rock Island Line's a railroad line, runs down into New Orleans. And just outside of New Orleans, there's a big toll gate. And all the trains that go through the toll gate, they gotta pay the man some money. Unless, of course, they got certain things on board. And they're okay, they don't ever have to pay the man nothing. Right now, we see a train, she's coming down the line. When she get up near the toll gate, the depot agent shout down to the driver. He want to know what he got on board. Say, what you got on board there, boy? The driver, he shot right back on down the man, telling him what he got on board. So I got pigs, I got sheep, I got cows, I got horses, I got all livestock, I got all livestock, I got all livestock. And the man said, all right then, boy, just get him right on through. You don't have to pay me nothing.
We booked passage to Southampton. Got off the train at Victoria Station, dropped our bags in some little bed and breakfast place, and went to Piccadilly to have a look around. Brought my guitar along. People were sitting around the statue, Eros, and somebody said, play Rock Island Line. And I said, how do you know about the Rock Island Line? Well, I learned it off of Leadbelly. Didn't think anyone ever heard about it over here.
Now, this is the Rock Island Line. I got goats, I got sheep, I got cows, I got horses.
I had no idea that any folk song would be that popular. So it was amazing to have all these people singing Rock Island Line right along with me like they knew it well. Right here in Eros. The first night in London, hadn't been to bed yet at all.
Lonnie Donegan's version of Rock Island Line is one of the most influential recordings in British popular music history. But how did a 1930s American folk song ignite the first British teenage explosion over 20 years later? To find the answer, we have to go across to America and the Great Depression of the late 1920s.
Now, friends, this meeting is called on the auspices of the American Workers' Party, an organization dedicated to the organizing of the working class of America as the overthrow of capitalism.
When the crash of '29 came along, my father, who was a classical musician, said, well, this surely must be the end of the free enterprise system. And he joined with Aaron Copland and Mark Blitzstein and others with a group they called themselves the Composers Collective. They had collective farms in Russia. Why shouldn't they have a Composers Collective in New York?
But if music was to soundtrack the revolution, then many on the left felt that the songs should come from below and set out to collect and record the voices of the people from the four corners of America. The American folk revival had begun.
My parents started working with Alan Lomax, who was one of the most important people in the folk revival here, maybe the most important. He and his father and a number of other collectors traveled around the United States collecting music and putting it into the Library of Congress.
On July 16, 1933, Alan Lomax and his father John walked into Angola State Penitentiary in Arkansas and recorded Huddie Ledbetter, otherwise known as Leadbelly.
Oh Lord, I can think and feel a day. Oh, me and my wife can think and feel a cut. Me and my wife can think and feel a day. Me and my wife can think and feel a cut. Me and my wife can think and feel a day.
Leadbelly was to become a most unlikely inspiration for Britain's 50s skiffle explosion 20 years later. This would have been inconceivable to the Lomaxes and their fellow collectors at the time.
Jump down, turn around the Piccadilly cut. You got to jump down, turn around the Piccadilly day. Oh Lord, I'm the Piccadilly cut. Oh Lord, I'm the Piccadilly day. Oh Lord, I'm the Piccadilly cut.
All these guys were using those songs as the medium for social change. there was a very strong Marxist element, and the Marxist theology is that everything comes from the working class.
Henry, when he was a baby, sitting down on his mammy's knee.
But it was a left-wing hobo called Woody Guthrie who emerged as the ultimate folk hero and would become the enduring icon of the American revival.
I listened to Woody rant and rave about politics every day. There was a lot of left-wing people around, and Woody was very much their hero.
I'm gonna break my teeth around.
But the great thing about Woody is his marvelous use of poetic imagery in his words, which gets the message across with humor and pathos.
This land is your land, and this land is my land, from the California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest.
Woody Guthrie was the personification of everything the American folk revival held dear, a working-class poet bent on revolution.
As I went a-walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. Saw below.
My father left me an acre of land. Ivy, sing ivory. My father left me an acre of land.
But while the left claimed ownership of folk music in America, back in Britain, things weren't so clear-cut.
Now, today, I must tell you that in spite of all our victories, a rough road lies ahead. What a shame it would be to add to our load the bitter quarrels with which the extreme socialists are eager to convulse and exploit these critical years.
Here is the state of parties up to 3 o'clock in detail. Conservatives, 180. Labour, 364.
The defeat of the old empire warrior Winston Churchill in 1945 clearly demonstrated the conflict at the heart of the nation after the Second World War. In the blue corner was the old order that still wanted Britannia to rule the waves, and in the red corner were those on the left looking to create a new Jerusalem back home. And this divide was to be played out in the struggle for ownership of folk music in Britain over the next decade.
I sowed the seeds of love. I sowed them.
At that time, the custodians of the music were the English Folk Dance and Song Society, based in Cecil Sharp House. Sharp was the most prolific of all the turn-of-the-century collectors who gathered thousands of songs from all around the country.
The impetus behind what Cecil Sharp and Vaughan Williams and the rest did was purely political. This was, you must remember, the run-up to the First World War. Anti-German feeling was building, especially among members of the British cultural establishment. They resented the German influence upon English music, and they sought to free it. And when Cecil Sharp heard John England singing The Seeds of Love, it was like a wake-up call. This is the answer. And his idea was that this could be the roots of a new English tradition of concert music.
When I was a bachelor, I lived all alone, and I worked at the weaver's trade. And the only thing I ever did wrong was to woo a fair young maid.
It's part of eugenics in terms of these collectors. Everybody else had native music, but the English didn't, because we were a colonial power. You'd had 78s of Irish and Scottish music. We didn't have the 78s of the English country bands, say, for instance. You could have Vaughan Williams arranging the peasantry music and things like that, Benjamin Britten, people like that. The English didn't have native music.